Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Star Wars The Acolyte Season 1. In this video I'll give my overall review for Season 1 as a whole of The Acolyte. So I'll have to start with the spoiler warning for Star Wars The Acolyte up to the very end of Season 1. If you have not seen the entirety of Season 1, you will not want to watch this video, otherwise some things will be spoiled for you. So, I heard about this show a while ago. All I knew about it is that it would take place about 100 years before the prequels, which I thought was a very interesting concept for me because it is an area of the Star Wars universe that's not really been explored in the visual medium, in the television movies medium yet, as far as I know. And but it was really a blank slate, and I had no idea where they were going with this show. Now, apparently, a lot of other people have been having vitriolic negative reactions. There's been an outrageous backlash to this show. I've been noticing even before the show came out that there was a lot of angry, this is ruining Star Wars, Disney is ruining Star Wars, and this is terrible garbage. And every time there was a post on Facebook or something that would promote it, it would have the laughy emoji would be the biggest emoji. And once the show did come out, it got review bombed on Rotten Tomatoes, and it was 14%. And anytime anyone would defend this show in the comments, they would get viciously attacked by 50 people. Now, I know there's a lot of people who don't like the show for legitimate reasons, and even if I disagree with those reasons, some people thought it destroyed canon, other people just thought maybe it was written poorly or acted poorly, or just not a good story, or not what they want to get out of Star Wars, which is fair to all of that. But there are definitely bad faith actors out there who just attack it because it's woke, and they basically just don't like the fact that it has a diverse cast. Now here's the thing. Sometimes I would engage with certain people in good faith and be like, okay, so what is it about this character you don't like, and what is it about the writing that you don't like? And then it would come back and bring up race. I'm like, well, why are you bringing up race? You're bringing up the fact that it's a black woman. Why is that relevant at all? And so I think I classify that as bad faith actors. And then you have when people rightfully point out, hey, there's a lot of people who are just racist and sexist and are attacking this show for bad reasons. You got all these other people who jump down your throat and saying, oh, you're just making that shit up, and that's ridiculous. And I saw my YouTube feed was been flooded with how Acolyte was destroying Star Wars, and that it's the worst piece of crap, and then destroys any creativity whatsoever. And then other videos would be oh, they're calling you racist. They're saying anyone who doesn't like this shitty show is racist, and that's ridiculous, and that's just their go-to defense for anyone who doesn't like shit. And I'm like, but there are racists out there. I've seen it with my own eyes. And when the actress said she received she put out, apparently made a diss track or something, and was specifically addressing the racist and sexist people out there who definitely exist. And when she does, they're like, oh, they're just calling you racist if you don't like this show. They're saying anyone who doesn't like the show is a racist, which is not what they're saying. It's not what I'm saying. I definitely prefaced this beforehand, saying there's plenty of people who like this show for plenty of reasons, whether I agree with them or not, are legitimate. And that's what, in fact, exactly what the actress said, and that part gets ignored, and everyone's like, oh, she's calling you racist. And then when she receives death threats, everyone and all these people are like, oh, that's bullshit, she's making it up, and it's not fair, and they're just making this up to attack anyone who doesn't like the show. So the rhetoric around the show has been very nauseating and very frustrating, and I've been trying to ignore it. But every time I see any post about it on my Facebook feed, it's encountered by, you know, thousands of laughy emojis, and I don't even want to look at the comments. Sometimes I make the mistake of looking at the comments, and anyone who tries to defend the show is attacked by like 50 people. And that, see, the thing is there's plenty of shows and movies that I don't like. Like, I'm never going to watch a Fast and Furious movie ever, and I don't need to see one in order to know I don't like it. But the fact that all of this vitriol and hate was around before the show even aired, yeah, that I'm sorry, but that tells me that it's in bad faith. Because, yeah, if I see a trailer I don't like, I'm not going to spend all of my time viciously attacking anyone who's actually looking forward to that show. They can look forward to it. I don't care. I'm just not going to watch it. And what inspires that much hate from something that hasn't even come out yet? Now, granted, not all of it is bigotry. Some of it is like, just the diehard Star Wars fans who hate all the modern Star Wars stuff. Similar things happen to Star Trek, modern Star Trek, but to a lesser degree. I feel like the vitriol is like much worse, and it's been much worse with this show than compared to other modern Star Wars shows. Like Andor did not receive any of this hate, and nor did Ahsoka, which there were a lot of people who didn't like Ahsoka, but the vitriol and massive backlash was nowhere near as bad with Ahsoka as it was with this show. So yeah, and people keep bringing up the diverse cast, so yeah, I feel like that definitely has something to do with it. People are even telling you flat out it has something to do with it. So that's been very frustrating. But I'm here to judge the show on its own merits. And the thing is, and that's part of why I was kind of off-put by, or surprised, or just kind of annoyed by all of the banter surrounding this show about how it's the worst piece of garbage. Like, my YouTube feed would be flooded with all these videos like Acolyte is the worst piece of garbage. Like, after every episode, like, oh, that episode was a catastrophe and it was a dumpster fire. And I was like, the thing is, when I watched the show, I was like, it's fine. It just seemed weird that something so aggressively average and so aggressively mediocre was being people pulling in both directions, mainly the one direction, honestly, of how is the worst piece of garbage and affront to humanity. And it's like, and saying it about something that's just so mediocre, it's just there. Now, what my opinion of the show is, I was waiting to see where this was going. Like, I was reserving judgment, because so far, towards the beginning, I was liking what I was seeing. I think it started out strong because it showed Carrie-Anne Moss, who's a fairly well-known actress from The Matrix, in the trailer, and then in the first episode, she's killed. And so that's, I think, that's daring. Like, that is a risky thing to do. And so I was intrigued, and I was like, tell me more. And then so we get a bit more of the situations. We are introduced to Soul and Osha and her evil twin May, and it seems there's more to this backstory that we're told. And then so in episode 3 we get the backstory, but it still seems like we're left out some information. That I found frustrating. I found frustrating that they didn't give us all the information in episode 3, and I kept thinking to myself, there's got to be a reason of why they're withholding this information. And so most of these characters we've gotten to know, like Yord and that other chick who played X-23. Was it Jackie Lan is the character's name, I think. They all die in episode 4. And I was like, okay, so you spent all this time building up these characters and relationship, and you kill them all off. And so, yeah, so I'm like, okay, so where exactly are you going? There must be a reason of why you're withholding all this information. So then we get to episode 7, and we get another episode taking place in the past, and this one is taking place in the exact same time as the other one. There's a lot of crossover, and a lot of people are complaining about that too, which I disagree. I actually really like that. I like the showrunners keep talking about the Rashomon, which apparently is a movie where they show different the same events from different perspectives, which is something I've seen a lot of other shows I like Lost and various other shows do, and it's usually really awesome. Like, I think that is a really great storytelling method if done correctly, because it retells events you already thought you knew, but makes you rethink. It totally reshapes your perception of events, and I actually think that can be very powerful, and I actually love that. So when I saw episode 7, the premise, I was very excited. I'm like, wow, this could be amazing. And they give us, and it was great that we got the more information that we saw, because we were kind of seeing it from Osha's perspective of, she was told that her twin sister May started a fire that killed her whole family, her mother's, and so she carried that anger and hatred with her whole life. But the thing is that since episode 3, when they kind of blurred exactly what happened with the fire, I had the feeling that there was a lot more to it than they were telling us. And, we learned more about the Coven of Witches and how they used the Force to create Osha and May, and all the Cannon Hawks are going crazy about that, but I'm like, who gives a shit? So it was an interesting concept, and so when we got to episode 7, they said, there isn't, in fact, was more than meets the eye. There was this whole backstory that it turns out that the soul misinterpreted, like his intentions are good. He was actually trying to save the girls. He thought they were incorrectly. He was misinterpreting stuff that he saw and thought they were in danger, that the witches were going to sacrifice them in some satanic ritual. Not satanic, but essentially. And so he was scared for their safety, but by being scared of their safety, he ended up interfering, and that the witches themselves were scared of the Jedi, and so it was a misunderstanding, keep leading into other misunderstanding, and he ended up killing their mother. And realizing, and with her dying breath, she reveals, I was gonna let Osha join the Jedi. And so he realizes his mistake, but it's too late, and the other witches attack, and they have to defend themselves, and then the fire starts, and then he goes to try to save both young girls, but he doesn't have enough force power to do it, so he has to choose, and he chooses Osha because she's the one that showed interest in joining the Jedi. And so he generally thought that May fell to her death, but apparently there was a hidden trapdoor or something that she went to and saved herself. So here's my thing. I like this. I like this reveal, and I think it's really interesting. And I like the way that information was disseminated. I liked how we start the show not knowing who these characters are, and we get told their backstory, but we always think there's more to their backstory than we're told, and eventually we do get the full backstory, and it totally reshapes our perception of who these characters are. But the problem is getting back to what I said earlier, is that I was thinking as I was watching these earlier episodes that there needs to be a reason on why they are withholding this information for us. For example, why is it that we got the past episode in episode 3 withheld vital information from the Jedi's perspective, and then we had to wait all the way until episode 7 to get the Jedi's perspective, their shape of things, and what they were doing, which reshaped everything. So, and I kept saying there needed to be a reason of why they were withholding this information for so long. Even after I watched episode 7, I'm like, okay, so episode 8 needs to justify why we had to wait all the way to episode 7, what makes it important to the present day storyline of why we, the audience, couldn't have this information before. And the bottom line is, I don't think they did justify it. I don't think that they did, there was any reason why we had to wait that long to get this information. When I look back on the show, I don't see why we weren't told this in episode 3. Why did we need to wait till episode 7 to learn this? And another one of my major issues with the show is that I believe the villain's name is Chimera. He's listed in the cast list as the Stranger, but he's, the evil guy. Yeah, Chimera, I think. Towards the start of the show, he's appeared as like this, kind of henchman who's just helping May and just works for the main evil guy, but it turns out he is in fact the main evil guy. Something that a lot of people called, which I don't care. It didn't bother me. I didn't think it was. I probably wouldn't have figured it out on my own just because I wasn't thinking about it all that much, and once someone brought it up, it was like, oh, that guy's probably the main evil guy. I'm like, oh yeah, you're probably right, and it was him, so I don't care. That's fine. My problem is this character was never really explored. Like, he always seemed one note. Like, they never really got into his backstory, or anything, or developed him in any way. He always came off as just evil guy. Like, even, for example, Palpatine in the prequels, he was definitely evil. That's his personality. He's definitely Mr. Evil, but he was developed. He was dynamic. You kind of got the ins and outs and how deceptive he was and how he ticked and whatnot. Where we didn't get any of that with Chimera. It's just he's evil and he wants an apprentice. Like, whenever anyone asks, "What do you want?" he's like, "I want an Acolyte." Hence the name of the show, I guess. So that's all we're told about him. And that's my main problem with the show, is that I don't care about this character. I don't really know who he is. And so when we had the episode 6, we had an entire episode with Osha hanging out with him and him trying to seduce her to the dark side. I found it boring as hell because even though I knew Osha, I still feel like present day Osha needed to be developed more as well. Like, I didn't really know much about her other than, she trained to be a Jedi, then dropped out and was working and repairing ships with this funky, funny little tiny droid, pocket droid, that she talks to a lot. Other than that, I didn't really know that much about her. She seemed like a nice person, like she was friendly with those other Jedi people who died in episode 4, and even that one guy was being a total dick to her. And it was hinted at, like I saw behind the scenes things, that there might have been like a little romance between her and Jackie. Maybe Jackie was interested in her, but she promptly dies. So none of these characters are really developed that much. Like, yes, it's interesting to get the backstory of how Soul's probably the most developed of the characters, and he dies in the finale. So you just killed off your most developed character. Way to go. And so all this time, like, messing around and saying, "Oh, is this person really?" Ooh, is this really the evil guy? And this is not the evil guy. And oh, this is the backstory. And let's do the same episode twice, but from different perspectives. Like, in general, I'm fine with that idea. But the problem is that they didn't take the time to develop the present day enough. Like, develop May and Osha enough. Like, we don't really understand why May, how she ended up with the Sith, with the evil guy, and we didn't really understand who Chimera is. And more than that, we get this other side plot with that green lady who is the Jedi. I'm trying to find her name. No, I can't find her name. What is her name? It's around here somewhere. No, it's not around here anywhere. Where's her name? Oh, here it is. Vernestra. Yeah. So we get a side plot with her, and she's been, as a Star Trek fan, I would equate her to the Admiral type character. She's the one that shows up and the main characters go to, and she's like, no, you can't do this, and I give you orders not to do this, or I give you orders you're allowed to do this. She was like one of the head Jedis in charge of this particular thing, and she was particularly, and then you get into the politics of it all, that she was hiding the fact that certain things from the Senate, because in this time period the Jedi are completely autonomous from the Senate, whereas in the prequels the Jedi is considered under direct control of the Senate. And so we're kind of seeing the origins of how that happens, because in the finale we get a senator that goes to her and tries to talk about how the Jedi are unchecked emotions. They think they can control emotions, but they really can't, which seems to be like the theme of the show, because the show's all about these 4 Jedis who fucked up and decided to hide it, and then someone coming back and hunting these 4 Jedis down. So the side plot with Vernestra, again, it's like it was hard for me to get invested in what was going on with her, because I don't really know who she is. I don't really know. And at the end, when we're trying to get some answer on who the stranger is, who who Chimera is, all we learn is she senses him, so it makes it clear that she knew him. And she mentions, oh, that was probably a former apprentice of mine, a former Padawan. So someone that she was training. I don't know if it was directly her Padawan, but that's how they're connected. But the thing is I don't really care, because I don't know any of those characters. I heard theories out there that one of the witches, Mother Karul, who apparently gave birth to May and Osha, that she might still be alive, because we never actually saw her die. In even in the episode 7, the whole how all the witches died was kind of left vague, so I think it was left open for her to be alive. So I was really hoping that she would show up in the finale, not because I needed this and because theories came true and I wanted my theories to be correct or any bullshit like that, but because it's a character I know. They spent time developing these characters. To me, it would have had more meaning. If Mother Karul showed up and was revealed that she was actually using a Chimera as a vessel and it was really her, and she showed up and she was there at the end when Osha turned to the dark side, then that would have more meaning. I would be more invested. That would be meaningful. Whereas because it's some random guy who just is a one-note evil guy who the only thing we know of his background is he used to be a Jedi apprentice, which is whoop-de-doo. Probably could have figured that one fucking out. And, he was apprentice specifically for Venestra. Oh my god, I don't really know who the fuck Venestra is either, except for the green lady who constantly gave orders and shit, and was hiding political shit and doing some shady shit. That's all I know about her. So I don't know enough about the living characters. They killed off any characters that we actually got to know and actually got connected with. And yeah, sure, we could get further flashbacks in season 2. So, let me get to the main point. My main issue, my main gripe with the season is that it did not give us enough. Like I kept saying throughout the whole season, I can't make a judgment on this because I'm still waiting to see how it turns out. I'm going to still wait. I need to wait and see how it turns out. Even up to episode 7, I'm like, I need to wait and see how the finale turns out. And now the finale happened, and I still feel like I need to wait and see. But however, they have reached the end of my patience. They needed to grab me before the end of season 1. Even shows like Lost and Mr. Robot or any other show you can think of that's very serialized, that has a mystery at the heart of it. Even each season feels like a complete season, even though like Lost season 1, let's take that for an example, that still left a ton of mysteries. Like, it barely answered anything. You didn't even know what was in the hatch by the end of the season. But so it left a lot open to you to want to return to future seasons. But it had a complete arc for a lot of the characters, like Jack, him and Locke, we started to see, we got to know who these characters are, we got to sort of identify them, we were invested with them, we got like a full story. So season 1 felt kind of, and even all these side characters like Claire and Charlie and Sun and Jen, like we got to know them all. And we get to see the dynamic of the island was being developed and like exactly how it affects these characters. And so what I'm saying is season 1 was self-contained, even though there was tons of mysteries left open for future seasons. And I don't think that this show did the same thing. I feel like season 1 is not self-contained. I feel like we don't know enough of who Chimera is my biggest issue. We don't know enough about Osher and May. We don't know enough about Venestra, and these are the characters that survived. The characters we did know a lot about, like Sol and Yord and Checky, they're all dead. Now, sure, we can get their flashbacks, and I'm sure, like season 2, we'll probably have all these flashbacks about Venestra and Chimera and explain their backstory, which is bullshit because we needed to get at least something. Like, you can leave some stuff to season 2, like Lost. You can leave some stuff for future seasons, but we needed a reason to care. A reason to care about these characters. A reason to care what's going on. And quite frankly, I did not buy Osha's turn to the dark side. Like, yes, I realize she believes all her life that her sister had betrayed her and killed her family, and then she finds out, and she was told this by the main guy she cared about, Sol, who she looked up to and cared about him, and then she finds out that not only has he been lying to her entire life, that he also killed her mother and lied about that. And he tries to explain, like, I did it because I love you or whatever, and she's like, starts force choking him and force chokes him to death, and as she's holding the lightsaber, it turns red, which apparently there's precedent for that in canon, but I still thought that was stupid. And the reason why I thought it was stupid is because I don't think it was particularly earned. As I said, I don't think we got enough of Osha because she came off as just, I'm this nice little, I trained to be Jedi, but I let the anger of my sister bother me. And she seemed her turn from I want to kill my sister to I love my sister was too quick. I didn't buy it. I didn't buy it. It needed to be earned. And the turn from, oh, I trust and love Soul to, oh, fuck you, I'm going to kill you, too quick. Like, granted, she would be angry over the fact that of learning this, but the fact that she reacted the way she did is felt artificial to me. I didn't think it was earned. You know how this could have been earned if they developed who fucking Chimera is more, what his interest is more. They could have worked on Osha more and developed her more, or had like some people, like if they revealed Mother Kirill was still alive and was involved in this, and it would tie into this backstory that we've been getting all season. But nothing ties into anything because the main point seems to be this bullshit. And apparently there's, we see some dark figure in the background on, the evil planet, and it turns out that could be Darth Plagueis. And that's supposed to tie into canon. Plus we get Yoda in the final scene. So, oh my god, it's all tying into greater Star Wars canon. Who cares? It needs to be self-fucking contained. You need to develop these characters on their own. Instead of giving us Easter eggs, oh look, it's Darth Plagueis. Why the fuck would I care about Darth Plagueis? It's just some guy that freaking Palpatine was talking about in the prequels about some backstory. Yes, we could be getting that backstory now, which is all well and good, but we need to give us reasons on why we care about these particular characters. And I really thought that was mishandled. And let me be clear, because for me, I think this show's frustrating because all the building blocks are there to be a really good show. And I wanted to like this show a lot because you had good, I think, despite what some people say, I think you actually had good acting. And I think you had some good character development. And you had good building, and I love the way that information was disseminated throughout the show, how you were just slightly getting this and slightly getting that. And so it could have been really good, but instead, like, they don't build off of all this hard work or all these good character development in a meaningful way. In fact, they fail to develop key characters, and they kill off the ones that they did develop, and it just leaves you feeling incomplete. And I think this was the same problem with Ahsoka Season 1. As much as I loved that season, the ending kind of ruined it because it felt like an incomplete season. It felt like, and granted, I know that with these shows you want to leave more for future seasons, but you have to have enough to keep the viewer invested and interested in the season itself. You can't leave too much open, and I think that is a problem with a lot of these modern day franchises. Is that sometimes in trying to get the audience to tune in again to see more, they don't get them interested enough in what's right in front of you. And I do think that this is what the show is guilty of. Now, maybe not to a really bad extent like some of these other properties do it a lot worse, but still I think that it failed. I think that I think that it wasn't as self-contained as it needed to be. So my rating for The Acolyte Season 1 out of 10 is going to be a 6. Good. It was good. Like, there were a lot of things I enjoyed about it. A lot of things that worked for me. I just feel like it's kind of frustrating because I feel like it could have been great. And had they just done a few things slightly differently, had they just done quite a different direction, and I don't like the way that felt like after every episode I felt like, no, I don't have enough information to make a judgment. And then at the end of the season, I still feel that way. And so I have to make a judgment, and my judgment is it's incomplete, that they needed to do more. And they could have, because they had a lot of good, strong building blocks, and this season needed to be more self-contained than it was. So anyway, that is it for my review of Season 1 of The Acolyte. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to check out my channel as I continue to cover other shows like House of the Dragon and Star Trek, currently covering every episode of Star Trek at the moment in Star Trek Next Generation Season 5. So be sure to check out my channel so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.